Shalawah. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honors to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakakwadash, double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the elect of the nation of Israel. This is your brother Ayash Kabar from the GMS Virginia camp, coming at you with another lesson that I pray that you find edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. And once again, the Spirit of the Lord hit me while I was asleep. I had a dream and woke up and gathered some precepts and striking while the iron is hot. Essentially, let me tell you about the dream and then I'll go into the precepts. It was a relatively short dream, and I just pray that you brothers will bear with me on this. It was at a business, and I was with a woman, and the woman that I was with, I would say, based on how my relationship with her was it was a woman that I was responsible for. And while at this business, this woman that I was responsible for at this point wanted to go to various departments within the business, to take care of business. And when she got to this one office, she wanted to interview for a position at this business. So the interviewers were rather, I'm not going to say disrespectful, but they were very short with her, but they gave her a shot to woo them over with her. They gave her a shot at the interview, to put it shortly. They gave her a shot at the interview, and normally, at interviews, it's the employer and the person interviewing for the job. But I had the pleasure of sitting there and observing the interview. So now I'm looking at the interviewer focused on the interviewee, which was the woman I was with. But the woman that I was with, she couldn't get her words together. She couldn't get her thoughts straight. She was all over the place, with what she was trying to convey. So I got up during this interview and I approached her. And as I approached her, I began talking to her, but I was talking to her not with a sweet, mellow voice. I was stern with her. I was like, look, what the fuck are you doing? You're here, you're interviewing for the job, but, you're unimpressive. You're letting it go. I don't know what the fuck is going on in your head, but you need to tighten up. So as I'm telling this to this woman, she's looking at me with a level of agreeing with what I'm saying, like yeah, but also with a level of embarrassment. So I tell her these things, and I walk away from her, and I sit back down in a seat that I was in. And now I'm looking at her like, okay, now do it. And again, she starts talking, giving accolades and you know uh, um, things that she's done, but not going into the things that needs to be done to get the job. You know, she's going into, yeah, I did this, that, or the other. You know, you know, whatever. She's not wooing over the interviewers. And as she's talking, she's moving further and further and further away from the interviewers, such that now her voice is just a mumble in the wind. So I get up again and I go to her and I say, now I'm even more strict the second time than I was the first time. And I really, I really get in her ass. I'm like, look, it's fucking crunch time. You need to get on the fucking ball and do what the hell you need to do. You know? You say you want it, but you're not doing anything to get it. You say you want it, but you're letting you're letting it go. You say you want it, but your interviewer is beginning to become non-interested in you. Your interviewer is looking at you like you're not the candidate that they're looking for. And now the interviewer is starting to, look other ways. So I come back and I sit down again because as I'm getting deeper and deeper into this woman's ass, she's like, okay, 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 again, as she did the first time. So I come back to my seat and I sit down, and now I'm looking at her, but now as I'm looking at her, I'm more stern with my look. I'm more like, you better get this shit right type shit. So she moves closer towards the interviewer, but it's not enough. It's not enough with her performance that the interviewer wants to keep her around, wants to even hire her for the job because she's not what they're looking for. But I overhear I overhear one of the interviewers say, "Shit, we should hire him. He's more in line of what we're looking for." And I hear it multiple times from various interviewers. Shit, fuck her. Let's get him. He seems like the type that would do the job. Then I wake up. And I partially wake. But as I'm laying in my bed thinking about this dream I had, I'm trying to relate it to something. And what I relate it to is the scriptures, as I do most things within reason. And what I relate it to is the Lord is the interviewer. The prophets are the men with that woman, trying to get that woman in order. And that woman is the tribe of Israel, who finds it hard to do what's required to get the job. And that's how I perceived the dream. And it's crunch time. The woman knew what needed to be done, but she couldn't do it. She didn't do it, you know. And the prophet, who was the man who was trying to get the woman straight, knowing what it took to get the job, was he was steadily trying to get the woman to adhere to the requirements needed to get the job. Look, you get your shit straight. Look, do this. Look, don't do that. Look, fuck your accolades, because your accolades don't mean shit in terms of getting this job. Your interviewer doesn't care about what you did in this world. Your interviewer cares about what you're able to bring to the business, his world. And what's required for you to get a job to enter into his world is work, is diligence, is a surety, is being able to stand, not moving further and further away the harder the questions get, or not moving further and further away the more you're pressed to do the job or have to deal with certain things. Your interviewer requires you to stand 10 toes deep, and present yourself. And that woman couldn't do it. She couldn't present herself before the interviewer. And she couldn't present what she wanted to do to the man she was with that austere man that she was with, whom, I perceive as the prophets, or as a prophet, telling her what she needed to do. So I got a few precepts, and, as I said, I pray that you found this lesson edifying. The book of 2 Peter, chapter 1 and verse 10. Wherefore, the rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling and election sure. For if ye do these things, ye shall never fall. That woman went into that job interview wanting a job, but once she was before the interviewers, she couldn't deal with it. She couldn't give her diligence the amount of strength it needed to make her election to get the job sure. She just couldn't do it. She couldn't stand before the interviewers. She started, losing strength in her words. But the prophet was there to tell her what she needed to do. That man she was with was there, telling her what she needed to do. Look, get your shit. Stop playing around. Do what you need to do. The book of 2 Esdras, chapter 14 and verse 13. Now therefore set thine house in order, and reprove thy people. Comfort such of them as be in trouble, and now renounce corruption. That man she was with was, reproving her. Yo, look, these people don't give a fuck about what you did in the world. That don't matter. What matters is that you're presented before them, and you need to impress them. And how you impress them is do this. The book of 2 Esdras 14:14. Let go from the mortal thoughts and cast away the burdens of man and put off now the weak nature, because that woman kept losing strength. And the more she spoke to the interviewers, the further and further away she became, which made her voice less and less heard. And to the point where in my dream it sounded like mumbling. It sounded like someone talking in the wind, but you can't make out the voice. You know, it's almost like she was weak, as I was stating. You know, she couldn't deal. And it's going to be like for a lot of, it's going to be like that for a lot of Israelites, because remember, I considered the woman being Israel in my dream. Yeah, she wants to make it, but she can't because she doesn't have the strength. She has a level of disbelief in her ability. The book of 2 Esdras chapter 14, reading down to 15. And set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times. Even though the prophet approached her numerous times and told her what to do, and she looked up at him, in his face, and said, yeah. But the moment the prophet walked away, she got back into her slump. She fell back into that nature that prevented her from standing 10 toes deep before the interviewer, which I perceive as Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. For yet greater evils than those which thou hast seen happen shall be done hereafter. That's why it's important to give your calling and election sure. Put off now that weak nature. Put that weak shit aside, because the job that you're interviewing for requires you to do so. The job that, that woman was going out for, she couldn't handle. And it was unclear to me in the dream whether she knew what job she was going out for. But what was clear to me in my dream was that she couldn't stand before the interviewers. She couldn't look them in their face. And she was given the opportunity to present what she would do to improve the business, to help out the business. And she couldn't present herself. And in that, she was destroyed. That was just a quick hit on a dream that I had, and my spiritual perception of that dream. And I titled this lesson Crunch Time because that woman was given the opportunity to present herself, and at that point it was crunch time, where you had to show and prove. You had to step up, and she couldn't do it. But for the men of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, we're constantly in crunch time. Crunch time isn't a thing that comes and goes for us. It's a constant motivator, for us to make our calling and election sure, to be diligent in this thing. 2/3 of the nation of Israel aren't diligent. They don't know how to handle the pressure. They don't know, they don't understand that this isn't a joke. Or should I say, we understand that this isn't a joke. We understand that this is deadly serious and it can cost some of us our lives. But in that, there's salvation in that because, we put our trust in Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. And we were able, or we are able to stand or sit in that room during that interview and listen to the interviewees present themselves. And it's an honorable thing, or it's a blessing, I should say, to be able to understand, what's going on in this time. Anyhow, not to get off topic, I just wanted to throw that in there, And so with that, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honors to Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the elect of the nation of Israel. Shalom.